Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. This is Sandy with Gifted Travel Network, and I am here for the Travel Agent Success Series today. You will notice that my colleague Shannon is not here with me today. Shannon is actually in the Dominican Republic, and she's there with a group of our members of our Travel MBA program, and they had a retreat for a few days to focus on some items that they can help people work through the program and connect with one another. So they had a great group of people in the Dominican Republic. So Shannon was there with that, with our Travel MBA lead mentor, Lisa Fletcher. So we're missing Shannon this week, but she will be back with me next week. So I am very happy that you're here and would love to you to pop in and say hello and tell me where you're checking in from, where you're viewing from, and just it's great to see that information. And if you're watching this as a recording, please do the same. Please pop in and share where you're viewing from. And we do keep an eye on the comments both during the session and after the recording is posted. So if you have questions, please let me know that as well. So this Travel Agent Success Series is designed for travel advisors who are looking for success in their business. And we try to talk about topics that are going to be directly relevant to you. So we want to be able to share information with you that it focuses on how you can have more success without working more hours. I think we all feel like we put in a lot of time into our businesses, and we want to be able to get as much out of them without adding more hours. So it's one thing to say, well, you can make more if you double the amount of hours that you're working, but then you have no quality of life. We don't want that. So the topic for today, what I'm going to be talking about, is maximizing vendor relationships. So if you have a question about that, feel free to pop it in the comments and let me know what your question is, because vendors are something that are critically important to us in the travel industry, obviously, because in many cases, but not all, they are delivering a core component of what our clients experience on their vacation. That wouldn't necessarily be true with things like travel insurance, but if they have a need to file a claim, then they certainly impact how successful a client's vacation overall, that experience working with you would be. So let me define vendors. You could call them vendors, you could call them partners, you can call them lots of different names. But when I talk about vendors, I'm talking about the people that we work with primarily to book travel. So talking about cruise lines, both ocean and river. I'm talking about hotels, tour companies, wholesalers, so companies like GoGo and other companies, Classic Vacations, that package trips together for us as travel advisors. So they put these different pieces together, and we share that with, book that on behalf of our clients. So that's what a wholesaler does. So all of these companies are really important to your success as a travel advisor. So I want to share some tips with you on how to maximize those relationships, because they do have a direct impact in how successful you are. So they have a direct impact in how successful you are, because if they don't do a great job, your clients aren't going to be happy with the vacation, and that has a trickle-down effect to you. If they are difficult to work with, that has an impact on your business, because it means that you're spending more time trying to reach them or being on hold. If they don't pay commissions on time, that causes you stress, and you're having to constantly chase commissions. And if they are not easy to work with when there is a problem, and problems absolutely are going to happen. That is a given. In any kind of travel, something can go wrong. And for many people, it's all about how you handle it. So today I want to give you some tips for working with vendors and being able to have success in building those relationships, but also want to talk to you about the importance of establishing relationships so that you are more successful financially, because who you do business with matters. But before I get into all that, if you've just joined us, please feel free to put any comments or questions that you have in the comment section. Would love to know where you're joining from, so feel free to pop that into the comments as well, and let us know where you're joining from. And if you just popped in and you missed me saying where Shannon is this week, so Shannon is in the Dominican Republic, and she is she's with a group of our Travel MBA students and our Travel MBA mentor, Lisa Fletcher, and they've had a retreat down there for the last few days. So they've been enjoying time in paradise and working together on making their travel businesses more successful. So that's where Shannon is, and she'll be back here next week. So look forward to having her back and having her here with me. So, and hi, Pam. Hi in Houston. Always nice to see you pop in here. So happy to have you join. So the question of the day is, or the topic of the day is all about maximizing vendor relationships. Now, I'm talking about this, but this is not my role in Gifted Travel Network. We have an amazing vendor relations team here of 3 people that's headed by Vanessa McGovern. And so they do an incredible job of establishing relationships with preferred suppliers. They triage and escalation issues and work with our advisors on resolving escalations, which is a huge weight off many of our advisors' shoulders, I know. And so they do a lot of things to make sure that our advisors have access to some of the very best in the industry. Because here's the bottom line: who you work with matters. Absolutely, it matters. And I think a lot of times travel agents tend to think that whoever, especially if it's a cruise line or even if it's a wholesaler or a resort chain, they tend to think if a client comes and says, hey, I'm interested in a trip on XYZ ship or to XYZ resort or with XYZ company, that that's what you have to book. And that's not necessarily the case, because you're the expert and you're the one who has the in-depth knowledge of all these different providers, what they have to offer, how they differ. And you certainly should always keep in mind that you have the responsibility, I think, to have a conversation with your clients and say, and you're not questioning their decisions, but you're trying to educate them. And so ask them, oh, that's great that you're interested in XYZ cruise. Tell me how you picked that particular cruise line or this particular itinerary. And what you may find out is they just happen to see a commercial on TV. They really don't know anything about it. They don't know anybody who's ever been on it, but they saw a commercial on TV and they thought it looked amazing. Maybe it's a good fit for them. Maybe it's not. With cruise lines, the number one reason that people don't have a good cruise experience is because there's a mismatch between the cruise line that they're on and their travel preferences. So it's important for you to really understand your clients, and really, in a lot of ways, your job is to be a matchmaker and to match up the right client with the right travel operator, cruise line, tour company, hotel, resort, whatever it is that is needed for that particular trip. So you do have a responsibility, I think, to your clients to dig in, find out a little bit more so that you can make recommendations and make their trip the most successful that it can be. Generally, and hi, Penny, thank you for saying hello and hope things are well in Little Rock today. Generally, people, when they work with suppliers, if you go back and you look at a list of what you've booked for the last 12 months, you probably have a group of anywhere from 5 to 15 companies that you've worked with most frequently. Most people don't have 50 different companies that they work with, because that's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot to know everything that's going on with these different companies. And within your specialty, you probably have found that there are companies that do a really great job and that they're easy to work with. And it is absolutely okay to make decisions on what your clients should experience based on how easy they are to work with you. Because if they're good to work with, you know that if a problem comes up, you can get it resolved. Some companies, as I'm sure you all know, are a nightmare to work with if there's a problem. And it might even be the most minuscule problem in the world, like a misspelled first name that maybe there's 2 letters transposed. And sometimes it's easier to get an audience with the Pope than to get those 2 letters reversed. Believe me, I've been there. And you don't want to work with vendors like that. So you need to really know who it is that is great to work with, who's not great to work with. And if you're working with a vendor that's not great to work with, I guarantee you there's somebody else that could serve that demographic. And it might be that it would serve you well to dig in and take a look and see who else is out there. And the way I would determine who you work with is to first reach out to your agency, your host agency, maybe your consortia, franchise, however you're affiliated, and see who's preferred with them that does that particular type of travel. And the reason working with preferred vendors really matters, not just for your agency, but for you too, is because those are the partners that have demonstrated that they are committed to building a relationship with that agency and the people that work in that agency. It's not enough that they just simply have a product and that they will pay you some sort of commission. There's so much more to the relationship than that. It's how do they support you? What kind of training and resources do they provide? What sort of commission level do they have, and what sort of yield that do they have? And we've talked about yield on another of the Travel Agent Success series. So if you're not familiar with that term, definitely check that video out, because yield is critically important, because that's actually the amount of money that you put in your pocket. Because with cruises, with airfare, with all kinds of travel, there are non-commissionable items included in there, and some companies pack a lot more non-commissionable items in there than others. So it does matter who you work with. And generally, as a business, no matter what kind of business you work with, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. So it doesn't make sense to work with 15 different companies when you could just work with maybe 2 or 3 and get what you need. Because then that way you have more clout, you have more resources. And that's not just true at the agency level, that's true at the agent level as well, because you should get to know your representatives for these different companies. They should know who you are. And by establishing a relationship ahead of time, it goes a long way with helping to get problems resolved in the future. So if there is a problem, you aren't coming to them for the first time to say, hey, I've been booking for you for a long time, but you've never heard of me before, but I've got a problem now. It's much better to be able to reach out from a point of reaching out and saying, hey, Sandy, I have a problem. I need your help, and explain that. And I'm going to talk about effective problem resolution in a minute. So the point of this is picking partners matters. You absolutely can help guide your clients to the right partners that are the best to work with and that provide the best service delivery, because we all know just because somebody posts thousands of ads on TV and spends millions of dollars on ads online does not mean that they are best in class. It just means that they have a huge marketing budget, and they may be the perfect fit for your client, or there may be a vendor that is a better fit with them. So I encourage you all to think about that. Now, touch briefly on establishing relationships with your with the reps, the BDMs, or they go by a whole host of names, the reps that work for the companies that you do business with. And you really should know who those people are that either serve your agency or you are your host agency, your franchise, your consortia, whoever it is that you work with most directly, and establish a relationship with them. It doesn't have to be anything more than just sending them an email and saying, "Hi, my name is Sandy, and I book your product a lot. I understand you are our rep, and I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself. This is what I do. This is how long I've been in business. If you have any events in my area or have anything that I should be aware of, would love for you to let me know about it." And just establishing that from the beginning is so important. And I see Shannon's probably watching us from the airport. And yes, you're right, Shannon. These relationships are so important. So definitely reach out to those people. Make yourself known to them ahead of time. Then the other thing to think about with vendor relations is how you go about resolving problems. Every travel agent is going to have problems with a booking at some point or other. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how amazing your clients are. It doesn't matter how amazing the vendor is. Sometimes things happen that are just completely out of the client's control, or the vendor's control, or your control. And you're going to need help, and you're going to need problem resolution. And there are 3 things that I think that you need to do before you get on the phone and try to resolve a problem or send an email. The first thing is take a deep breath. Taking a deep breath and gathering yourself together for a second is not going to slow down the resolution process. It probably in the long run will help it. So take a deep breath first and foremost. Second, identify what truly is the problem and what the solution is that needs to fix it. Now, sometimes the actual problem can't be fixed, but there is something that can help remediate the issue. So for instance, let's say that you have a client booked, just to continue the cruise thing, that you have a client booked on a cruise and you get a message 2 weeks before sailing that the cruise has been canceled because there's some significant mechanical issue with the ship. Happens. Calling and yelling at the cruise line is not going to do anybody any good. If they could fix the ship, they would have fixed the ship. Believe me, they don't want to be in this position any more than your client wants them to be in this position. They just would really like it to be resolved and go away. So what you have to do is then figure out, okay, what is it that we can do to salvage this? Is it to get clients on another cruise with that same line, departing from the same port so they don't have to change their airfare and cancel their vacation? Is it that now they just don't even want to go and they just want their money back? What is it that they want? And sometimes that means that you have to be a voice of reason for clients, because sometimes in situations, clients are upset and what they really want is not reasonable, especially if what they want is a full refund and a completely free cruise the next time with an upgrade to the penthouse suite and upgrades to first class airfare. And sometimes people just get a little crazy with these things. So you have to be the voice of reason. So you've got to stop and look at what is the problem and what is the resolution. And then the third step is to figure out what is the best way to go about getting this resolution. Is it for you to reach out to this BDM that you've already established a relationship with? Is it for you to reach out to the cruise line directly? Is it for you to reach out to your host agency or agency in general, and hopefully they have some sort of a vendor escalation process, and say to them, I need help? And maybe the help that you need from them is just simply talk me through the best way to get this resolved. Because chances are you may not be the only person who's dealing with this situation. And if the agency can then go to the cruise line and say, look, we've got 8 advisors with a total of 12 clients who are affected by this canceled cruise, how can we sort this out? Then approaching it from a calm, rational standpoint will benefit everybody. Because I can tell you that when you get upset and you rant and rave to the cruise line or the BDM or the hotel or the general manager or anybody else, that's going to come back to haunt you. I promise you, it's going to come back to haunt you. This industry is a small one, and there are so many people that move around, and maybe you're never going to sell that product again. And then the BDM ends up being the BDM for the number one product that you do sell. So take a deep breath, figure out exactly what the problem is and exactly how it is that it needs to be resolved. And then once you've done that, figure out the best way to get to that resolution, whether it's you're going to take this on yourself and try to handle it, or you're going to reach out to somebody in your agency and ask them to assist you with it, whatever the best way is to move forward. Remember also that problems don't get resolved in 30 seconds. You need to make sure that you educate your client, that you are on this. You make sure that you communicate with them frequently. Make sure that they know I am working on this. I'm completely focused on it, but also make sure that they know that this probably is not going to be resolved in 20 minutes. But I will let you know the moment I have a resolution. And if the end of the day comes and you still don't have a resolution, reach it back out to the client and say, I don't have a resolution yet. I'm confident that I will have something in the morning, and I will continue to follow up on this, and set realistic expectations for them. But then you also have to have realistic expectations. And some of those expectations are going to be dictated by how far out the travel is. If the problem is occurring for a trip that's 3 months from now, that's a very different scenario than if the problem is with a trip that is going to be 3 days from now or 3 weeks from now. So make sure that you have reasonable expectations and that you share those with your clients, because that's really important. And then continue to communicate with them, and then provide the feedback to the client as soon as you get it from the vendor, so that you can get this handled and get this put to bed. And then always make sure to follow up with the people who helped you with this process with a thank you, because we're all very quick to complain, but we're very slow to thank. So it's important that you reach out to them and say, thank you for your help. Thank you for resolving this. Even if they couldn't resolve it exactly the way you wanted to, if they really went to bat for you, say thank you to them. And again, this goes back to something I said earlier. If you have relationships with 5 or 10 vendors, it's much easier to get to know them, for them to get to know you, and for you to interact with one another, so that you are going to have better outcomes when there is a problem than if you're working with all kinds of different companies and you're booking one thing here, one thing there, one thing somewhere else. Sometimes that's the nature of what you have to do, but for the most part, it's always better to, you don't want to put your eggs in just one basket, but it's always better to sort of compress the number of companies that you're working with. So hopefully you find that information helpful. If you've got comments or questions about anything related to that, please, problem resolution or maximizing vendor relationships, please be sure to put it in the comments. And I'm happy to answer any questions. The other thing I want to mention is a word about how to vet suppliers. I'm frequently astounded at how many travel agents pick a vendor to do business with simply because they met a rep and they were nice. That's great that they had a nice rep, and it's always nicer to work with nice people than it is people that are difficult to work with. But just because the vendor is nice and they have a nice brochure, how do you really know anything about this company? And I think this is especially true when you're talking about components of an FIT. So if you're booking fully independent travel for people and you're putting together something, how do you know that this company has the financial wherewithal to be there 6 months, a year, 18 months from now when your client actually travels? Obviously, if it's a hotel, that's a building, and that has a lot more stability than somebody who is a tour guide or a driver or somebody who's going to organize some sort of outing for your clients. So I would really encourage you to really think before and vet people before you do business with them. Talk to your colleagues, talk to the people in the agency that you're affiliated with, and ask them about these companies, because it may be that you end up saving yourself a lot of heartache by asking questions ahead of time. So those are my tips for maximizing vendor relationships. I hope you found some of that information helpful. And remember that if we can ever be of service to you, feel free to reach out to us join us at giftedtravelnetwork.com. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. Happy to give you feedback or advice. So feel free to reach out to us at giftedtravelnetwork.com, as you see there on your screen. And we hope that you have a very successful day, a very successful week. And I look forward to seeing all of you next week. Bye-bye.